It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Minnesota State's Moorhead head women's basketball coach, Coach Karla Nelson. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Brandon. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in coaching in college basketball?
I think my first recollection of maybe the thought crossing my mind was probably honestly in second grade. My second grade teacher asked me what I wanted to do, and I grew up and I said I wanted to coach basketball. But I'm sure I thought it was more fun then at that point in time, and I got to, I love playing sports, but honestly, it probably hit me most in college where, I saw my college coaches and how they worked and how they recruited. And I thought, this is something that I really, really want to do. And it was a dream of mine. And ultimately, I started coaching when I was done playing 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th graders, and then moved from that to the high school level or to the varsity level, and then got offered an assistant job at Division II Minnesota State Moorhead.
Of course, what was it like attending North Dakota and playing their basketball team?
Well, coming out of high school, I knew that I wanted to go to the University of North Dakota. I grew up about 60 miles from there, and I certainly had a passion for, at that time, it was North Dakota Fighting Sioux. Really want to represent them, and there was never any doubt in my mind that that's where I wanted to go. A lot of my friends went there, and at that time, North Dakota women's basketball was probably one of the best teams in the country. So I wanted to play for the best. And in 1985, I attended my freshman year there, and it was probably one of the best decisions of my life.
Of course, what was that like attending that school and playing for your hometown area?
The nice thing is when you grow up about 60 miles from there, a lot of people can follow you and come to your games, which I always had a really nice following. And but I can tell you this right now, that putting on that uniform and running out into the Hislop Sports Center there at the University of North Dakota was, it's a memory that I will never forget. I can still smell the popcorn. I see the ladies that worked in the lunchroom. I can see them sitting up in the balcony, cheering for me and my teammates. And it was just really prideful, and such a great experience, and something that I'll never forget.
What was that like getting to put on that green basketball jersey for them?
Again, I just think, kind of surreal, like I can't really believe I'm here type thing. And then to be able to run out onto that floor for the first time, where I had saw so many women before me run out, and I always wanted to do that. And then I got to do that is, a dream come true. And that's what I always tell people, follow your dreams. You just never know what can happen. But certainly, it's something that I cherish. And again, I take great pride in, and am just so happy that I got to be a part of that program.
Of course, what were some of your biggest accomplishments as a player?
I would say that the few that I did have, well, number one, I got to play with great teammates. I was captain 3 years in a row, defensive player 3 years in a row. I still think I'm in the top 10 in assists, possibly there. I'm not sure. But again, I think it's, those things I'll always, the captain and the defensive part is still a part of me as a coach. But again, it's the friendships and just the experience. And really, I owe a lot to the professors there for making sure that I graduated and am able to do what I do today.
Of course, how does that feel to obviously have that record as the most assists at North Dakota?
I don't have the record. I'm in the top 10. I was really, the way I kind of looked at it is I really took great pride in being a great passer. And, I really love to have that assist and see my teammates shine. And I look back on that as certainly something I take great pride in. But I think the thing that I probably take most great pride in is just the defensive award, being that great defender, shutting down that really good player on the opposite team.
After your collegiate career, what was that like getting started in college coaching and coaching at your alma mater?
Well, what I did is I took a couple years away and I did some color commentary for our team at that time at the University of North Dakota. And then I did coach at the high school level. And I never coached at the University of North Dakota. What I did is I coached junior high, middle school, and then varsity, and then got an offer to coach at Minnesota State University Moorhead as an assistant coach. And that's kind of what kind of got the ball rolling for me.
What was that like taking that transition from coaching on the high school level to going to the Minnesota State?
I think the benefit when you're a college player and you go kind of backward, and what I mean is that you go back to the roots of the game, which are coaching young kids that are just learning the game. It brings you back to the fundamentals, which I think a lot of myself, higher level players probably forget about a little bit. So it takes you back to the fundamentals. And then ultimately you can bring kind of, I'm not going to say you're going to bring them because you always bring them, but you're going to refine them at that level. And then you can integrate them at the college level a little bit differently. But certainly, the game of basketball is, for the purists, it's about, being strong fundamentally.
Of course, coming to the Minnesota State Moorhead, what was that like becoming the assistant coach first?
It was a great experience. I got to work with a head coach that was very knowledgeable. Jean Royce was her name, or is her name, and uh, she was a great player in her own right in college. And then she coached at a junior college in North Dakota, and then ultimately got the head job here and asked me to be the assistant coach. And I really got to set up the foundation for our recruiting. And really got involved heavily with individual workouts and things like that, and then just progressed from there. So it actually was a really great fit.
Of course, what is that balance between becoming the coach and coaching as the assistant coach for the women's basketball team and also the head coach for the softball team?
Well, that was quite the balancing act, really. First of all, I didn't know that much about softball. I just, took over the program because I thought that I could at least put together a good team. And I was fortunate that we had some pretty good players on our softball team at Minnesota State Moorhead. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a balancing act. It's, when you, in the 90s, that's kind of was the combination thing to do, was softball, basketball, especially if you're looking to salary people. And that's really was my first full-time gig, was that softball basketball combination. And I'm just forever grateful to the softball players because, they played hard for me, and they really taught me a lot of things. And it has nothing to do with necessarily the game, but just how to coach people. And so I was really grateful, and that really helped me take over. When I took over the basketball program, it really helped me, build those relationships with those players.
Of course, during that time, what are some of the things that you learned to help you for the softball field and the basketball field?
I would say that just try to keep, everything in perspective and be patient. And because I do think it can seem, daunting. It's a daunting task to be involved in two sports, but, just do what you can do and do the little things well. It's not the big things that necessarily matter as much. It's the little things, just really paying attention to, again, I'm going to say this, relationships, putting the best practice plan you can put that together. But, it's kind of like you go back to keep things simple, stupid, right? Just keep it simple and do the best you can and be patient with the process.
Of course, during your 6 years as an assistant coach for Moorhead, What were some of the things that you learned to help you when you did make that jump to become the head coach?
Well, I really just paid attention to, how coaches and players interact. I think early on, I was always, try to treat players all the same, but what I kind of learned is that you have to figure out what makes each player tick and treat the group the same, but individually, you got to figure out what makes each player tick and really be accepting of different personalities. That's probably the biggest thing that, yeah, as I took over the program, that I felt like watching from the outside in, that was something that I was going to have to do.
What was that feeling like taking over the program after the former head coach?
There's mixed emotions. I think, you really wanted to help someone succeed, and maybe you didn't do what all you could have done to help that person succeed, but yet in turn, we're different people, and I have a different approach, and our athletic director at the time, Dr. Katie Wilson, saw that maybe my approach would work successfully here at Minnesota State Moorhead, and and it was just an exciting time, and I wanted to come in and have that 5-year plan that everybody puts together, and I think the first thing I really wanted to do was hire good people around me, and I think I did that at that point in time.
What was that feeling like when you did get announced to become the next head coach?
Well, it was, again, it's maybe that surreal moment, when I talked about running out on the floor as a player for the University of North Dakota for the first time. It's kind of like that same thing when they announce the starting lineup, and then they say in her first season as head coach, Karla Nelson, you're just like, oh, wow, yeah, this is what it feels like. So yeah, I mean, it was kind of that dream come true in a way. And just really grateful.
What has it been like throughout your career helping leading your team to a victory and having that front row seat?
I don't know if it's always, the victories that you you appreciate the most. It's actually, I think, having the front row seat to watching young women grow, and becoming the best that they can be, or maybe you're front row to watching some struggles. Not every year do things go smoothly, but you're front row to it all. And I think the biggest thing now is I've gotten older, and I see how successful a lot of the players that I've coached, how successful they are. I got to be front row to watch them come in as young, immature, and graduate and go on to be successful at their profession, and maybe a mom, a wife, a partner, whatever it is. I mean, I think that's the process that I enjoy the most, is just watching what they come in as and what they leave as. So it's been fun.
How's it been like, obviously, reaching that fastest 300 career wins in your career?
As a coach, I think when you're in the game long enough, you don't really pay a lot of attention to that. I think most coaches were always worried about the next game, right? So there's no question when you coach good players and you have a good staff and administration that supports you, um, you do appreciate it. There's no question that you appreciate the 300 wins because it involves a lot of people. But really for me personally, I don't think much about it. I'm always worried about the next game.
Of course, throughout your coaching career, what has it been like taking your team to the NCAA tournament?
It's probably the best feeling because it's, everybody thinks, oh, it's just probably so much fun. Well, it's hard work, to be successful and to get your team to the NCAA tournament and, try to win some games there and eventually win an Elite Eight. But it's hard work, and you probably don't realize how much fun it is until you can get removed from it and look back. And then when you look back, you're like, man, that was the time of my life. So, yeah, it's very rewarding, I think, especially for the players and all their work that they put in during the off season and the season, and then your assistant coaches who put in a lot of work and don't get a ton of credit.
Of course, from 2016 to 2019, what has it been like, obviously, going to the conference championship 3 straight years in a row?
Well, again, it's kind of a blur, but I would say that when you during that time span, we had some really great players, and you got to see them play at the highest level they possibly could. So that was really rewarding. It was fun to watch them play, and honestly, it's probably the easiest coaching you'll have because it was player-led teams, and when you have player-led teams, they usually do a lot better than coach-led teams. So, I had a blast when I look back on it. What we did in that 3-year span was probably pretty phenomenal. I don't know if we'll ever repeat that. We'll certainly try, but pretty phenomenal.
Throughout your time as a head coach, what has it been like, obviously, seeing your teams break records and set records?
I think there is that reward because you put in a lot of work, and you're really fortunate you have groups or a group that is really coachable and excels in certain areas and is able to achieve and attain those goals and set records. Sometimes the most rewarding teams that you coach are the teams that people have no expectations for or fewer, and they really exceed those expectations. Those are the teams, honestly, that I probably relate with most, and that I probably cherish the most because they weren't expected to do much and they actually did.
Of course, as a head coach, can you talk about the culture that you started to build for the program?
A lot of people talk culture, and I probably use the word culture a lot of times, and some days it makes me cringe. I think the thing that I look at is, we more so than a culture, we just set a standard that we expect our women student athletes, basketball players to attend class, to be good representatives, great representatives of Minnesota State Moorhead, and come to practice and compete hard every single day. And play to the highest level that they can. And if that's part of culture, well, then that's the culture. I don't think a lot of people assume that culture, it probably does influence winning a little bit and losing, but I think that winning and losing can happen because of injuries and all sorts of different things, but I really feel like just expectations and making sure that you don't allow people to come in and dismantle those expectations is really important. And then that probably leads to people using the word culture so much.
Have you been able to create your legacy for the head coach at Minnesota Moorhead?
Can you repeat that question?
Have you been able to create your legacy as the head coach for the Minnesota Moorhead?
I really haven't thought much about a legacy. I think the one thing that I probably reflect on a lot is, and this is maybe doesn't pertain so much to basketball, but it's probably more so trying to help women find their voice. I've had a lot of young women come into the program who have been shy or bashful or insecure, not confident. And my goal has been to try to help them find that confidence, that voice, so that when they're done with their college career here and they go on to their profession, they can use their voice to make a difference. And that to me is probably the most important thing, that if that's my legacy, that would be pretty good.
Who are some of the teams that you face each week in your conference?
Well, we don't face them each week, but we face them twice. It'd be Northern State out of Aberdeen, St. Cloud State out of St. Cloud, Minnesota, Minnesota Duluth, Minot State, University of Mary out of Bismarck. The NSIC is a tremendous conference, and we have 15 or 16 teams. We'll be losing one here in this spring, but we have some pretty spectacular, pretty terrific basketball teams in our conference and some outstanding coaches. So my life is tough every weekend.
Of course, what is that like, obviously playing those in-state teams like the Duluth and the Golden Gophers versus playing teams like St. Cloud?
Well, the University of Minnesota Duluth is Division II, so it's not like the University of Minnesota, which is Division I. But I would say that just across the board in the Northern Sun Intercollegiate Conference, all our teams it's very well balanced, and it's all the games. It doesn't matter if they're Minnesota colleges or universities, or if it's a team from Nebraska or Iowa or North Dakota. They're all very good basketball teams, and so it's we take great pride in preparing for everyone the same.
What does the recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes looking to play college basketball?
For us, I think the biggest thing is we always want to make sure that there's a good academic fit. So one of the first things, we'll talk about is what is your academic interest? And, as long as we have that academic interest, then we can pursue that student athlete. And, we would like to recruit smart young women in the classroom so that we don't have to worry about them outside of basketball. And then it would be, do they fit well in with our style of play? Can I see their personality fitting in with the current players? Are they going to be good ambassadors for Minnesota State Moorhead? Would they fit into the Moorhead community? All those things. But certainly when young women, I think one of the things I always try to pay attention to are how involved their parents are, how they've been raised, and right now I think we have a great group here with great parents, and just really proud of where we are at right now with that group of people.
While on the road, what are some of the things that you look at as a head coach to building the team?
I look at people's athleticism, how they interact with their teammates. Of course, you're going to go out and you're going to you may have a specific need, whether it be a point guard or a post, or, maybe you're looking for a forward. What you're going to do is that's the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go out and find that kid that you need, or that position that you need. And then you're going to watch how they interact with their teammates, whether it be AAU or high school team. And then you watch their skill level. Does it fit well? Does it mesh well with what you need? Can you see them playing with the current players? And then you do a little investigative work behind the scenes, talking to AAU coaches, high school coaches, maybe some professors, and it kind of goes from there. And then as long as everything checks out, then you bring them for a visit and then they judge you. Do I want to play there?
Of course, while on the official visit, what does those female prospective student athletes do on the official visit?
Well, on most official visits, we'll come in, give them a campus tour, let them meet with academics, and then we'll usually take them to lunch, a little low-key lunch, have just small talk, and then it'll be more interaction with the team in the evening, and then yourself and with the parents and the coach. And then you go in, basically the next day you talk more finances, what you want to offer, find out, during that whole process, just how competitive they are. Could they see themselves going to school here? My biggest advice to any high school player would be make sure that the most important thing is make sure that you can see yourself going to school someplace if you were injured. So that really makes you think twice. If I can't see myself going to school there without basketball, maybe that's not the right place for you.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing them get to put on that jersey for the first time as a freshman and the last time as a senior?
Well, as a freshman, you kind of worry about where is the ball going to go today? Who are they going to pass it to? Is it going to be the right team? But certainly there's that, that excitement in their face, that nervousness, that nervous energy, like, oh my gosh, this is my first college game. So that part is fun. And for a senior, it's probably, there's probably a lot more emotion, knowing that your career is winding down, and watching them play in their, final game it's rewarding and yet sad, but yet, it is the process. So it's still There's a lot of emotion. It's not just one particular thing.
What are some of your future plans for building the program?
Well, I mean, I don't really know if I have, future plans. I think consistent plans would probably be the best way to put it is, just continuing to build our perimeter game and continue that great post play, which we've always had great post play. So, I think that will always be until I leave and walk out the door, we'll always have great post players and perimeter players who get after pretty hard.
What advice would you give those high school athletes that are looking to play college basketball?
Just keep the process fun. It should be fun. It shouldn't be overwhelming. If it gets overwhelming, then you probably need to back away and really narrow your choices down. But it should be fun and go someplace that feels like home. Don't just go someplace for the scholarship because on the bad days, and there are bad days, you wanna really like where you're at because it makes the bad days short. But if you're only there for a scholarship, those bad days can turn into multiple bad days and really long bad days. So just go someplace that feels like home.
What advice would you give those college athletes that are looking to play professionally, whether it's the WNBA, Athletes Unlimited, or even overseas?
I would just tell them if that's if that's your goal, keep living your dream. You got to live your dream, and you have these opportunities that women before you have created, and there's the door. Now it's up to you to walk through it.
What advice would you give them to look to represent a national team and one day make the Olympics, whether it's for US, Canada, or in Mexico?
Well, again, I mean, I think if there's that opportunity that you can represent your country, what greater reward, is there than representing your country? I would say if you have that opportunity, you should go for it. And again, if the door is there, it's your job to open it up and walk through it. So go for it. Live your dreams.
What advice would you give future college coaches looking to get started in coaching in the industry?
I think the biggest thing is just be patient with yourself and don't compromise your values for winning or anything. Make sure there's integrity that you have to make it at this level, and don't allow winning or people to don't allow them to compromise that at all.
What advice would you give those assistant coaches looking to make that jump to the head coach level?
Well, I think for most assistants, that's what you're here for. That's what that's why you're the assistant coach. You're learning, taking everything in. And again, just be patient when that opportunity, arises, be ready for that. And again, it is about being patient. You're going to make mistakes. You're not going to be perfect. It can't always be about wins and losses. You got to set the foundation and make sure that starts with a value system that represents you and your beliefs, and stick with it.
What advice would you give those future head coaches that are looking to start building their own program?
Just really think through it, make sure that you have a good foundation ready to implement, and just understand that there's going to be ups and downs. You have to weather the downs, and you have to make sure you enjoy the ups because the highs, because so many times coaches are always like myself, you look to the next game and you forget to enjoy what you've just accomplished. So make sure you enjoy that process, and just understand that there are going to be highs and lows, and you just have to sustain and maintain and honestly push through some of those situations and to get to where you want to go. And trust me, there are going to be people who will say things, criticize you. You can't listen to all that. You have to have that true belief, and that's where that great foundation, once you have that great foundation, really nothing is going to deter you from it, really achieving your goals.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media, along with the Minnesota State's Moorhead's women's basketball program at?
Where can they find me at? I'm on Twitter. I'm not on Instagram, but I'm I don't even know what my handle is on Twitter anymore. I've been on Twitter so long, and I'm on Facebook, and you can find Karla Nelson on Facebook, and I have a lot of coaches that follow me on Facebook. But I don't really talk too much about basketball. I like to talk about a lot of other things. So if you really, really want to get in touch with me, you have to email me at nelsnkar@minstate.edu, and I'll answer any questions anybody might have.
Thank you again, Coach Karla Nelson, for your interview, and best of luck in your future as the head coach for the Minnesota State Moorhead.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Karla Nelson, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.